Everyone, it is Justin Adkins here from Just a Note by Justin, and today for Creative Scrapbooker Magazine, I'm going to be creating an Owl Loved themed card using some of my favorite Pink and Main products. We're going to pull out the Owl My Love stamp set, which features these adorably cute owl images and love sentiments, but for this card, we're going to focus on the bottom right-hand owl holding a handful of balloons. We're of course going to do a little bit of Copic color markering together, so I'm going to go ahead and use my Misti to stamp out my image since I'm going to have to do a couple impressions to make sure it's nice and crisp. Now using Blackout Detail Ink by Ink on 3, which is my go-to when it comes to Copic marker coloring, I'm going to stamp out my image a couple times just to make sure everything is nice and crisp and ready for markers. We're going to start by using some E59, and of course with a little bit of movie magic I have fast forwarded my coloring, but we're coloring in the darker part of those feathers with E59, moving on to E57. After the E57 is completed, we're going to use some E55 to go ahead and round out the darker feathers, and then we can move on to the inner parts of the owl, which is lighter. So we're going to do E53, E51, and then a little bit of E50, keeping it all in the same color family. I like to do something called coloring twice, and this is so I repeat all of my colors in the same order that I colored them in so that I get a nice blend and a nice saturation of those colors as well. So I'm repeating my colors for the darker feathers, and now I'm going to start the process of repeating colors for my lighter feathers as well. So once we're finished with that E50, as that is our last color for the feathers, we're going to start by using some YRs in order to color up the beak and the feet. So we're using YR18, YR15, and YR12. I wanted to use a different blend of markers for my balloons, so one of my balloons I'm going to make orange. My first color I'm using is YR68, then YR65, and finish off with YR61. For the first balloon that's going to be blue, I'm using B06, then B04, then B01. And then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to go ahead and repeat these colors once more to get this all colored up. Finally, for my little green balloon, we're going to do YG09, 06, and 05. And I've slowed it down just so we can get that last color in, and then we've got our image all ready to be colored up using the YG color family. Now going in, I'm going to use my Owl My Love coordinating dies to go ahead and die cut this little owl out. Now I do love this little die because it cuts out some inner pieces where the owl's balloons sort of overlap and there's some gaps. So it does a nice job cutting out those inner pieces. I'm going to go ahead with some low tack tape, tack down my die and run it through my die cutting machine so that it's ready to go for my project. Now let's take a little bit of a closer look at this owl. He's just so stinking adorable and I can't wait to put him on this card. Next, I'm going to grab the year-round Plaids paper pack, and I've decided to use a pattern kind of with a more masculine blend. It's got a lot of yellows, blues, greens, and oranges going on, and I thought this would be really fun to play off of. So using the Stitch Rectangle Set 1, I'm using the largest die, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm just putting it into position so that it nicely gets all of those details from the plaid and gives sort of an even spacing for my project. Next, using some Sunny Sky cardstock, I'm going to go ahead and use the notched corner rectangle dies, grabbing the second largest, and I'm going to tack down my die with some low tack tape as well. Now moving ahead, I am going to go ahead and grab the Doodled Hearts dies and the Summer Glitter paper pack. I'm going to use the green paper that is included, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut this sort of scribbled heart where it's like a bunch of heart lines that are overlapping. It's going to give a really fun effect for our project. Then finally, I am using the Big Love You dies, and I am going to die cut out the cursive words love and you. So I've got those off of my die cutting panel. I'm going to put them on some ice rink cardstock, and I will also be tacking those down with some low tack tape as well. This will make them all nice and held when I put it through my die cutting machine. So here you can see each of my images going through, how they're all going to be processed through and then used for my card in just about a couple seconds. Now, of course, once I have my ink blending completed, I want to incorporate a little bit of ink blending. So I'm grabbing the Hearts of Plenty stencil and then also my notched corners die cut of the Sunny Sky paper, and I'm going to tack it to my stencil using some low tack tape. Then I'm grabbing some Barbershop Premium Dye Ink and an Ergonomic ink blender, and we're going to go ahead and just very nicely blend that Barbershop ink color over our Hearts of Plenty stencil and onto our notched corners die cut. So I'm just trying to be very careful and intentional with the movements of my hand, and then we're going to get a nice solid covering of that Barbershop ink. Now I am going to go ahead and use that residual Barbershop ink for two purposes. The first is once I remove my mint low tack tape, I'm going to distress the edges of my panel using my Ergonomic blending brush. This is going to give a nice ombre and distressed look to those edges, and those Ergonomic blending brushes work so perfectly to get nice clean blends onto your large die cuts like this. So after that's all completed, I'm going to wet up some of that residual Barbershop ink, and I am going to splatter it onto my panel as well. And this is going to add some fun extra detail to the panel. Now, I'm not done with the splattering yet. I am going to pull in some Sparkle Silk by Spellbinders, and this is a clear glitter sort of splattering medium that you can put onto your project just to add some of those glitter sparkle dots, and it's going to add some fun detail, fun interest, and just make your card a little extra special. Now, once I have that all splattered on my panel, I'm also going to use that same Sparkle Silk to splatter on top of my Love You die cut, just to make that a little extra glittery as well. One thing I like to recommend is before you commit to adhering all of your pieces together, sort of map out where you want all of your die cuts to be and then begin the process of adhering them. I am using a liquid adhesive via my Misti Precision Glue Press to go ahead and adhere my notched corners die cut onto my plaid background die cut. And I'm going to try and get it as centered as I possibly can. And then once I have it into place, I am going to reach for an oversized clear acrylic block. And that is going to go ahead. We're going to adhere it in just a second. It's going to add some even pressure to my project. Next, I'm going to use some more liquid adhesive, and I'm going to adhere my scribbled heart onto my project, and I decided to make it a little off-centered because I thought that that would give a nice sort of area for the owl to be placed so he doesn't have to be dead center of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and get my glittery green heart all into place, and then I'm also going to work at where I want my owl to go. So once again, you're going to see me fidget with my die cuts, just sort of see where I want to place them and sort of map everything out before I commit to adhering them with any sort of adhesive. So once I have an idea about where I want them to go, see, I'm doing a little bit of like a lopsided, slanted sentiment with my owl off to the side. I am going to use some more liquid adhesive to get everything put into place. I am starting with both the love and you words to getting all of the liquid adhesive down for that, using some precision tweezers to help aid in getting them in the correct spot. And then once I have both of my letters adhered, I am going to use my acrylic block once again, and I can put my owl right on top of it to make sure I'm going to put him exactly where I want him to go. Because I want my owl to pop a little bit, I've decided to adhere him with some foam tape. I do like to share a little bit of a tip, and that is if you are using foam tape with any of your crafting, I highly recommend investing in a pair of scissors that have a non-stick blade. This is going to make it very easy to cut up those bits. Now you can go ahead and see that I am using different widths of foam tape to get everything nice and covered, and then I am going to go ahead and remove the foam tape backing so I can go ahead and get this placed onto my project. So once I have the backing of all of my little bits taken off, I am going to go ahead and put my little owl into place. He's a little lopsided, and that's totally a-okay. Next, I'm going to use some glitter enamel dots from Pink and Main, and I'm using a combination of a lime green, orange, dark blue, and light blue sort of combination of enamel dots to really give my card some extra detail. I grabbed an A2 sized card base from my stash, and I'm putting some glue onto it so I can adhere my card front, and my card is entirely completed. I had so much fun creating this card with some of my favorite products from Pink and Main, including this adorable Owl My Love stamp set. I hope this card leaves you with some crafty inspiration for your next love theme project, maybe even using some products by Pink and Main. Now, don't forget, my name is Justin Adkins. I can be found over on Instagram and on YouTube by the same handle at Justinote by Justin, and you can find me on my blog as well at www.justinotebydustin.com. Thank you once again for crafting along with me today. I hope this card leaves you adorably inspired and stay crafty. Goodbye.